hypocrisy in the UN, hypocrisy on the left in America, and it is disturbing hypocrisy. We have Harry Potter star Emma Watson, First Lady Michelle Obama showing up at the UN and talking about how wrong it is to use words like bossy and sexy, how it degrades women in Western culture, how those are such terrible things. Meanwhile, not a word, not a peep out of the UN over the fact that ISIS has been raping hundreds of thousands of little girls, raping hundreds of thousands of women, and selling both little girls and women into sexual slavery. Where is the UN? They're hung up on, let's not say the word sexy, let's not call a woman bossy, because that's just not right. Joining me at this time from Washington, D.C. to weigh in on this matter is the co-chairwoman of Project 21, Cherlynn Harley-Lebon. Cherlynn, welcome to the show.
Oh, Rick, always great to be with you.
All right, tell us about this story. There's hypocrisy, and then there's disgusting hypocrisy. This is disgusting hypocrisy.
It is. It's disgusting hypocrisy at its best. You know, I just find it very curious that at the UN they're focusing on things like bossy, sexiness, when really there are women suffering under radical Islam in the Middle East, and there is really no discussion about how these women are really living under Sharia law. Let me give you an example, Rick. Do you remember the woman Miriam Ibrahim, the Sudanese woman who was in prison? She married the Christian man. The way it works in Sudan and under Muslim law is that you are the religion of your father. And Miriam's father was Muslim, her mother was Christian, and then she married a Christian man. She had a child, or does have a toddler, and then she was also pregnant while she was imprisoned. And what people really, I didn't think they even talked about, these women rights activists and feminists around the world, is that Miriam actually delivered her child in shackles while she was in prison.
Wow.
And it was interesting that you really didn't, I mean, this woman was shackled while she gave birth. And now she resides in Manchester, New Hampshire. And she was on Fox, I believe, last week talking about her faith and how her faith was so strong. But the point being, Rick, is that, you know, we really didn't hear a lot of outrage about the way Miriam Ibrahim was being treated. Let me give you another example. We all know the name Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who, of course, again, lived under Muslim faith as a child, underwent genital mutilation. So she's often a critic of Islam. And once again, this has happened before, she was asked not to speak at Brandeis, and then she spoke at Yale and was denounced by the students. And often she's criticized as being, you know, as preaching hate speech. And the reality is, which again, the feminists don't seem to want to understand or hear, is Ayaan Hirsi Ali has lived under the Muslim religion. She knows what it's like to be a woman and be in the Muslim faith.
And
she did not have.
There's no outrage, as you say.
There's no denying, right? There's no outrage, and we have countless other. You know, as you started this segment, talking about these young girls who are being raped, you know, by ISIS. You know, living under Sharia law, where little girls can't be educated, where they're sex slaves. And you know, the interesting thing is, women are the backbone of society. They are the ones that give birth. If you're destroying women, if you're destroying mothers, if you're destroying these little girls by raping them and making them sex slaves, what do you think is going to happen to your population? I mean, how do you think your society is going to function when the women and girls have been, you know, beaten and raped? These women are going to be unable to function. How do they think that their society and their families are going to survive or thrive at all?
Why aren't members of ISIS being captured and brought up to be prosecuted in an international criminal court? I never hear any discussion of that.
Right. that is what the discussion, in my opinion, should be at the UN. Instead of talking about phrases like, oh, it's unfortunate that we're using the words bossy, or we're talking about sexiness, let's talk about the plight of women and girls around the world, and particularly, you know, in the Muslim world, as we're dealing with how to fight ISIS. This is what we really need to be concerned about. And I would think those in this country that are concerned about women's rights, you would think they'd be talking about that and the plight of women like Miriam Ibrahim.
They ought to be embarrassed, Sherilyn. They ought to be embarrassed, feel humiliated to be rallying around Emma Watson's use of the word sexy, use of the word bossy. When these atrocities of young girls are taking place, recently up to 1,000 Yazidi women in northern Iraq were kidnapped, tortured, and held as sex slaves by ISIS.
Right.
Many of them murdered.
And Rick, you know, some of these girls are as young as 8, 9, 10 years old. They're the same age as my daughter. And this is really, it's barbaric, Rick. And I think that this is a story that really needs to be told. And if you have to take on a cause, if you're a women's rights activist, why not take on this cause?
Sherilyn Harley-LeBon, it's not an uplifting story, but we appreciate you joining us because
it's not.
It is an important story for the obvious reasons. And for the least, I keep using this word, I'm going to use it again, hypocritical. And it's important to me on this show, Sherilyn, to bring on people such as yourself. Anytime we can point out hypocrisy on the left, quite honestly, we'll point out hypocrisy on the left or the right, doesn't matter, but we're talking the left in this case. Hypocrisy on the left when it is dictating how we create a new narrative in society. And that's what's happening here. This new narrative is trying to be created by feminist activists, and it's hypocritical, it's wrong, and this is why one of the reasons we want to bring you on and share this story with our viewers. Thank you for joining us.